Later. Or just sing Girl Scouts.
We're ready to go?
You're right.
But
Trying to buy your way out of
Okay.
the other day,
It is 6:41. We are calling the regular council meeting for Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 to order. Teresa, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Don Barnard.
Here.
John Merriman.
here.
Karen Hendren.
Here.
Charlie Campbell. Nicole Shook. Bob Orsini.
Here.
Brian Green.
Here. If we could have Father Stephen Smith from the Church of the Ascension lead us in our invocation, please.
Let us pray. Dear God and Father, we give you praise for our gathering today. We ask that all we do be in the honor of your holy name. We ask your blessing upon these members of council as they work for the betterment of our community and serve to support the needs of Johnstown. We ask your blessing on all our first responders, police, fire, and active military for their safety, health, and well-being. May all that we do be for the glory of your holy name, and may we all have hearts open to you during these proceedings and throughout our lives. Lord, please guide us as we seek to work for those whom you have placed in our care. We ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
If you could be seated for one moment, please. March is National Women's Month, and in honor of that, we decided tonight to have the Girl Scouts of Johnstown. They are Johnstown's Daisy Troop 7700 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. We have Avery Strausser, Charlie Hardin, Charlotte King, Claire Orsini,
Do you know this kid?
Emberlyn Welch, Lauralee Middleton, Madeline Metelko, Morgan Calico, Murphy Yeager, Sawyer Wright, Tegan Coffey, and Tegan McGough. If we could have Chambers stand for the Pledge of Allegiance tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, so much.
Well, that's excellent finish. Some kind of.
And thank you to the troop leaders and the
got
parents for bringing them tonight.
All
We
troop
really
leaders
appreciate
right
it.
there.
I wonder why it was like extra packed in the parking lot.
There goes half the room.
And there goes our audience tonight.
No. I'll take him to.
Next on the agenda tonight is actions on the minutes for January 17th, 2023.
Wait, I'm gonna die.
Are there any questions or changes to the minutes?
No. I'll make a motion that approves written.
I'd second that.
Bob Orsini.
Yes.
John Merriman.
Yes.
Mayor Barnard.
Yes.
Brian Green.
Yes.
Karen Hendren.
Yes.
Next on our minutes, our agenda tonight is the presentation from MKSK. They are the firm that is working on our Johnstown Comprehensive Plan. They're going to come and give us a briefing tonight.
Sean, can you get them the HDMI?
Sure.
I plugged it in. I don't, maybe it needs to be moved to the center one. Thank you.
To the cloud.
Let me start by saying thank you for having us here tonight. We want to give you an update, whole community an update on the effort on the comprehensive plan. What we want to discuss with you tonight is a first piece of it that we really call the land use framework. We realize though, by calling it framework, we're creating some confusion with the larger Licking County effort. This is not that. This is just for Johnstown area. But that's what we want to talk to you about tonight, as kind of a first step related to the comprehensive plan. I will get into that here. Sorry. Over there. Sorry.
right, well, glad to be back. It's a really tough act to follow, so thanks for that setup, Sean. Appreciate that.
That's all Chris.
Cookies and children, and pledge allegiance. It's beautiful. We're really excited to be back here this evening with everyone, trying to get to the point of view, really, of the process that we've been working through with you all. Obviously, there is a lot going on right now, regionally, locally. So where we're eager to get to, I think, within this discussion is some emerging point of view for you all within this broader negotiation that's happening around the county and really around the Central Ohio region. So as we talk today, we're going to do a brief presentation. Of course, questions, thoughts, feedback, all welcome as we go throughout this. But wanted to give a window in what we've learned, or how we're trying to apply that, and what we think that starts to mean in terms of some short-term tools for you all to be able to enter into some of these discussions that are ongoing here in a way that really puts Johnstown's foot forward right now. So, as I said, brief presentation. I know this text is small. We'll follow up with this presentation with you all, but needless to say, with the conditions overview, there's one overriding thing here, and that's the Intel infusion into our backyard, what that means, largest single economic development. I know we all know this, but also things that are coming along with the conditions work as we start to build up, how do we create this, not just comprehensive plan, but also the land use framework. This idea of the water, wastewater system is obviously critical to our discussion here. Chris will talk a little bit more about what that means in terms of our next steps. Housing costs continue to rise. One thing that we're seeing regionally is a little bit of leveling off over the last couple of months, but not so really around this region in your backyard. A lot of transportation work going on right now, a lot of projections in various levels of resolution, but needless to say, there will be growth on the roads, and we can talk about that at length, I think, when it comes to those projections. Income tax, short-term development potential, all what we're trying to get to in terms of the conclusion here and what's going on in and around the region is that this announcement continues to sort of fundamentally upset the balance, right? There's just a lot that's happening, and it every day it's a little bit new. So initially when we got into this work, we thought this front part would actually happen quite quickly, but as things come in, we have to fold those into the thinking. So we want to make sure that when we develop out this framework, it's really reflecting all of the information that's available to us right now. You'll remember with our process, we've got really two pieces of work that we're trying to produce, one of which what we're talking about tonight with the land use framework is our first set of opinions about the future. Move this idea into the driving seat, remove mystery, leverage this once-in-a-generation opportunity, but also be prepared for what comes along with that. And I think as we talk tonight, really just trying to get this idea of setting the table for you all as a community and setting the table for you at the broader table of regional conversation and discussion that is ongoing.
Probably go back to that map.
Sure.
The organization, just to let you know. So we've already done the first community meeting, which would be the first little piece of that yellow bubble. We've done the baseline research, that's the first blue bubble. And what we're spending tonight doing is we have been racing along the bottom of that, the orange bubbles. So what we're really presenting to you is this framework look outside of the current boundaries of Johnstown. Because that is currently, I think, where the real pressure is. So what we're talking about tonight is just that area outside of the boundaries. And we're saying we're doing that to give you some tools so you can respond to lots of conversations that are happening. And then we're going to go back and dive into the heart of the comprehensive plan, which is going to be for everything in the boundaries of Johnstown and everything related to Johnstown. And then we'll go back and we'll probably revise what we showed you tonight with your comments as well. But we want to get something on the table early as we go through the full comprehensive plan process. Does that make sense? Hopefully that we can, okay.
Yeah, Chris, I use this term extraterritorial a lot, and I shouldn't because it's a complicated term. But what I'm really trying to say, I think, in this ramp up is that we're really looking at our planning area. You'll remember that's much broader than just our current footprint, right? If we think about this, one key point to point out is just what the opportunities are at the moment. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here when I say this, but there's a lot out there that we can leverage in this situation. It's not just about fiscal situations, job base, investment back into neighborhoods, really what happens back into this community. Obviously, ideas of reinvestment, controlling the destiny, and also what our borders look like. This idea of leveling up as a community, scaling great systems as you scale as a community as well. And I think, underlining in this, before we get to the bottom, is this idea of speaking your local needs at a slightly greater volume, right? So what you need, being involved in the regional state conversation here, Silicon, Heartland, whatever they really want to call it, how does Johnstown stand to benefit, from all these opportunities? The key thing to say, though, and I think this sets up where we're going with this work, not just with the land use framework, with the broader comprehensive plan, none of these things just happen, right? A lot of what we have to deal with here, there are active decisions, there's some tools we got to put in place, and some decisions that we have to make as a community to move and leverage and take advantage of these big picture items, intel, the regional players, using the comprehensive plan, and thinking about the tools that you as a municipality can make use of, whether it's development regulations, those decisions that occur, all of which are part of this conversation. So Chris, I'll speak to this a little bit, but even since we left off, I talk about this kind of bubbling, broiling soup that we're all involved in. Even since our last conversation, there's been some significant development around the region. So Chris, do you want to maybe speak to a couple of these items?
You all have seen this, and that's been part of the discussion. Continue to be employment announcements related to Intel and not related to Intel in Licking County and the area. As you know, Ohio Department of Transportation and many partners are looking at 10, 20, and 40-minute travel times from the Intel site, and what that means and how investment needs to be considered to make sure that we're looking at mobility on our roadways and accommodating the traffic impacts that come, not just with Intel, but everything that comes along with Intel. And then we know from talking to your great team, you're continuing to get calls all the time from in town, from out of town, from across the country, where people have no idea what's going on here other than they want to buy land near Intel. And so trying to help equip all of you with, and you're already doing a great job, but equipping you with some thinking on how to respond to some of those things. There's planning efforts, not just the transportation planning. There's the kind of countywide, at least west countywide area, Newark to the Franklin County line, about all things related to growth and development and housing in Licking County. So help frame some of those conversations as well. So when you're at those tables, and then we talked to you about this, but also share with the community, because it's really important to understand that water and sewer, central water and sewer, so not septic tanks and not wells, but piped water, piped sewer is really the name of the game when you talk about development. And I think the state understands that, the county understands that. They need to take Johnstown more seriously, I think. I'm not sure if they've really done that as well as they should have. So there have been plans being made. That's what that story is from the Advocate with the purple there, kind of talking about how they're kind of enabling Southwest Licking County Sewer District to come through here and serve this area for development. The issue there, we'll talk a little bit more about that, is who controls that development and what does that mean for Johnstown?
Coming back to our direction pieces, as we get into this, we've had conversations with the public, we've had conversations with you all, with stakeholders, this idea of the vision and values being really critical in our work. Growing while not losing, I think the heritage of who you are, really important. I think as we get into the principles for this idea of growth, the how, the where, we want to make sure that really represents who you are today and who you intend to be in the future. So one of the things we're going to put out today in draft form, this is all in draft form, is the idea of some concepts in terms of growth. These are not, however, and I want to make this very clear, statements on this is where we will expand to, right? This is ideas that if, then, right? So if growth occurs, we want to make sure it behaves in certain ways. We want to make sure it contributes in certain ways. And that second point being very critical, I think, to the bottom line for Johnstown and for this community long term. If there's energy here that folks want to expend, They do it in service of a greater good, and that's the benefit of Johnstown residents both today and in the future. And we see some initial tools here. And I say initial because remember we're doing the broader comprehensive plan. But we don't want to leave this land use framework with you without tools yet, right? So one of the things we're going to get to at the end of this presentation is what you could be doing literally right now to start to advance some of these conversations while at the same time advancing the broader comprehensive plan as well. And we'll talk about what those things are in just a moment. You remember our planning area is much larger than the city today, and that's intentional. We are term here, we're overlapping with the Johnstown Monroe School District with a little additional on the southeast side, but about 60 square miles where we're looking down on you and considering impacts of growth.
And again, really important to say this, from that first community meeting, what we heard resoundingly, and you've all heard it and told us this beforehand, is that Johnstown is really closely tied to the school district. And so if we want to talk about what this community is going to be in the future, we have to be thinking about from the school district point of view, not just the finite limits of the city of Johnstown. So this is enough to talk about how do we frame this conversation as to what development growth impacts are going to happen to the school district, community of Johnstown, and what's the role of Johnstown in that.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think we start to develop out some initial point of view here and talking with the public, talking with you all. We see the opportunities that are at hand. We know that there's a moment happening here, right? We know there's a lot going on. And what we say here is that Johnstown, can and truly will. And remember, this is a statement, right? This is a goal for us all. Control its own destiny, I think, within this. Control our own conversation, control our own outcomes. And by saying that, we will grow our base, more jobs, more revenue. We see that primary opportunity that is out there. I think as we introduce these principles, what's critical to stress within all this is that there is a base level of aesthetic consideration, there's a base level of fiscal contribution, that as we evaluate projects and growth, we do so in a way that truly is additive to Johnstown in the short and long term. But we do these things in terms of growth with our base so that we can do two things and do two things very well. Live well as a community, great neighborhoods, strong community, which you are and you will be. And on the third piece here, preserve our heritage. And this gets back into who you are and who you want to continue to be at your fringes, right? What Licking County that, Sean, you grew up in, what others have grown up in, this idea of directing growth and demanding quality as you receive proposals in the short term and long term. Again, as we think about the principles, these are very general, I realize that. We boil this down, this is really about what we're going to demand of folks as they come into this place and they want to invest in their community in the long term. This starts to speak to, I think, Chris, and interrupt me here, some we call these land use typologies. That's a little bit wonky of a term, but essentially that means the kind of the mix of uses that we may want to be seeing as projects start to emerge in this area, this swath around our community. They start to fall into three pretty big categories. You'll see one of those categories kind of is about not doing much at all. We think about preservation, we think about conservation of portions of our agricultural heritage, our natural features that are out there, and also allowing for some very low density potential housing within those swaths. Preservation is really a key item here and actually dominates what we think about the future of our planning area. Also critical here is this idea of people. There will be energy. We can guarantee there will be energy here where folks want to add well-connected, what's our demand, well-connected neighborhoods to your community. We use that word intentionally, neighborhoods, not subdivisions, right? Something that grows onto the pattern that you've established, that feeds off the character that you've established. It's inclusion of multiple housing types, but what's critical here, they're high quality, they're additive, and they're attracting strong, growing families and thoughtfully designed with open spaces. These are well-designed site plan places. But what you'll see within those little bars is that each of these zones, if you will, has truly a mix of uses within it. In the sense that we're not coloring things all yellow, not coloring things all pink, but rather there's a sense of master plan within these items from the top down. Chris.
So we're about to show you a map, and this is where people always get really excited and focused on. But the key thing I want to say is, again, this is the first blush, and we want your input on it. This is just our draft. We are using these three categories. There's a color for jobs, there's a color for people, there's a color for preservation. But the key point, that's why we have these little sliders in here, is that within each of those colors, there are many different kinds of uses. The jobs title means in this kind of land use, the focus really is going to be on employment, but we also realize there's going to be retail commercial needs. We also realize there's probably going to be some housing related to that. On the people side, we're saying this is really continuing kind of the pattern of Johnstown, where we're looking at great neighborhoods. We got to have great open space and green space, and we got to have neighborhood commercial services in that area, and that's the people color. And then the preservation is recognizing what's going on in Monroe Township, that we have important agricultural uses, we have important natural features that we want to protect, we have housing, kind of a rural housing pattern, and that's good and appropriate, and in those areas, we're painting it in that, I think it's green color. So just to understand, when you see three colors, there's a lot more going on, and we're not trying to prescribe exactly where each of these particular slider uses happen, but it helps inform the conversation as we go forward.
And the only column here I didn't speak to yet is this idea of jobs, but jobs, right? I think as we talk about fiscal benefit, this capture employment base, we talk about a lot of the initial energy here with the Intel component. That's where we see quite literally the most opportunity for you all at this particular moment, medium to large footprint, but a true mix there as well. And first blush, you realize small, I'll blow it up here on the next slide, but where do these things start to slot based on what the conversations we've had, based on where there's opportunity, and also where there's just quite flatly environmental constraints that may exist, right, to work around or to truly avoid. One thing that jump out, I think, is as we look at the map, that we've not absorbed the full planning area, I think, within this initial point of view, because what we are showing here is truly a large absorption from who you are today, and it makes a pretty strong statement about who you might become in the future. I think initially looking, top down, one of the things you'll notice is hopefully I think that relationship between what is the beauty campus, Intel, and the future growth out from New Albany, how that's met by a corresponding potential area for our community to grab fiscal opportunity, to grab jobs, to benefit off the energy that's coming in to that system. Correspondingly, as we get closer into the current developed area for Johnstown, we think about how do we complement, integrate, and make sure that growth that occurs on that fringe is not combative to what's gone on in Johnstown previously. Again, this is not a statement about all these areas will grow into this pattern, but rather what would be appropriate within these vectors surrounding our planning area moving into the future, whether it's about preservation, jobs, or people. Chris, did I miss anything on that?
No, and again, I want to reinforce, this is not a exact land use map. This is not a zoning map. This is trying to get us to start thinking about generally kind of what happens in different areas. Now, will there be employment opportunities that we want to entertain along 62 going north and east out of Johnstown? Yeah, probably, and we want to continue that. And if great opportunities come, then that will be something I think would entertain. But so this is just a framework to start thinking about it. And when you see the green, it's not saying we can't have any development there. It's saying where our focus probably has got to be is looking at the pressure that we're facing to the south around Intel. We're going to talk about that. And that we want to have neighborhoods that really plug into the existing neighborhoods around Johnstown. That's why you see the yellow. But again, there's retail, there's commercial that goes along with that has to serve that. There's open space preservation, there's parks, there's civic uses, there's a school district. So there's a lot of things that go into this, but this is a framework to kind of start thinking about it. And one of the things we'd like to have, and we'll come back to this, is your thoughts. And you can share thoughts tonight, but we expect you probably want to sit on things and talk to people and get reaction back. But we'll continue to work on this. But this is just a first chance for you all to see this.
Could you want to speak a little bit to this, for lack of a better term, the Green
Yeah.
Chapel gap that we identified?
So we just maybe go back to the first map, the map before this real quick. Part of the reason that area is purple, and we said that's jobs, is because that is the flat, large land close to Intel, which is where the pressure is now. And we aren't the only ones that realize it. Johnstown isn't the only ones that realize it. A lot of people region realize, including landowners and developers, that this is the area of focus. Now, to get back to that earlier point, the way you develop, you gotta have water and sewer, you gotta have central water and sewer. So the game afoot, the pressure is gonna be anybody that wants to see the area in purple develop, regardless of what jurisdiction or who's in charge, it's gotta get served by water and sewer. But whoever gets water and sewer there first is really gonna control the development, and that's the key part. So if we in Johnstown wanna have a strong influence for what happens in that purple area, we need to be thinking about how we as a community service that with water and sewer, or work with a partner that can provide water and sewer. Without that, we will not have a seat at the table of what happens in that purple area. And the pressure is immediate. You know, from the state level down, this is a priority area. So Intel is where the focus is right now, but because Intel's there and other things are there, and the investments we're gonna put into the roadways at the 10-minute, 20-minute, 40-minute mark, and the water and sewer service that's been provided to this point, there is going to be pressure on this area, and somebody's gonna end up serving it, and it's gonna get developed in some way. And so I think our big point is, we think for you, on behalf of Johnstown, it ought to be Johnstown that really controls the destiny of what happens here. You have a great community, you need jobs and the income tax base and the fiscal resources that purple represents to be able to provide all the things that you want today and to be able to direct growth and all the impacts that happen in the future. So our presentation, one of our main points tonight that we want to get the community and you council to see is that one of the immediate things is figuring out what happens, what's the destiny of that area in that circle that we call the Green Chapel Gap. Well, if you have a better name, we'll take it. But the southern swath, south out of Johnstown, between 62 and Mink, what happens there is critically important. The other thing like most of the council understands this, but for the community to understand is when land is annexed into a city, that pretty much means it's not going to be annexed into any other community. So you can see New Albany, Intel is in New Albany. So that's the boundary of New Albany. In between there is Monroe Township, which is not part of a city, and then there's the Johnstown limits. If the ground between New Albany and Johnstown were to annex into Johnstown, then Johnstown is going to control that future, and Columbus isn't coming through, and nobody else is coming through. It will be Johnstown controlling that. If New Albany was able to figure out a way to annex up to the edge of existing Johnstown, then New Albany would control that future. If Columbus was able to figure out how to come up around the Metro Park and come across through here, Columbus would control that future. If Delaware figured out how to do water and sewer and brought their sewer service down here and wanted to work with whomever, then that would control the future. If the Southwest Lincoln Community Water and Sewer District gets up to here, then they and whoever they partner with control that future. So lots of different scenarios, but the key point is water and sewer service here and how that is controlled will really be the main seat at the table for what happens in this area.
So, you know, as we look at this, and this is why we talk about the framework being, I think, a critical first step within this broader planning effort. So much of what we do here is about the sequence, right? If you do A, then B, then C. And I think as we think about initial first steps within this, there's some geographies that really get underlined, right? There are some parcels, I think, within those geographies that get underlined. But also there are some tools that we think about that are critical, I think, for you all as this conversation begins to escalate in a good way, right? In a good way, I think, for us. And remember the key point of this in terms of unlocking some of this potential, this jobs piece, but more importantly, this fiscal net benefit piece. That's where we see the greatest opportunity for you all in this really, truly short term. And I know we're doing a lot of choir preaching tonight, right now. I know you all see this, but this is I want to make sure that we say this back because it's an important argument for us to make. And Chris, as we highlight here, this is just a reiteration of what you're saying in terms of, I don't want to call it necessarily threat, but there is urgency within this, especially as other groups look at the same properties that we do, right? And remember that Johnstown's decision not to act doesn't necessarily preclude others from doing the same, right? There's change foot across the full board. So we want to make sure within this case, that we have a strong opinion here. Chris, anything on this?
No, just a decision not to act is still a decision.
Yeah.
And that's okay, but it needs to be understood what that decision is. Yeah, the key piece there is at the state and county level, there's discussions about who can serve areas. That purple area is what the county said Southwest Lincoln Community Water Sewer District could serve. Now, physically today, they cannot serve it, but it's saying on a map, if they can make the stuff work, that they could come up here and serve it. If that land in that Green Chapel Gap was annexed to Johnstown, then it would be Johnstown that would be able to serve it and control what happens there. But right now, absent any other change or information, this area that we're talking about would be serviced by the Southwest Licking Community Water Sewer District, if and when they were able to afford to extend water and sewer lines up from south of 161 to this area. The other key part, and Kyle wants me to say fast, but other key part is wherever you run water and sewer line, you get development. And that's a key thing to understand. So if the water and sewer comes from Southwest Licking Community Water Sewer District, everywhere they run those pipes, they're going to have substantial development to pay for the cost of running those pipes. Unless the state really, really wants to give them crazy amounts of money and not charge them to figure out how to keep the system operating with costs. I say that just to say, when you see in the news like today, that Jersey Township's trying to figure out how they preserve some of their rural character in the future. If the water sewer lines came up in this purple area like they're shown, you're gonna have development there. If the water sewer lines came from Johnstown down, you're gonna have development along there, but you've already got development along there and you can serve it very quickly. If the water sewer lines came from Columbus around from Franklin County through this area, everything along those lines are gonna get developed at a next level of density. So it's just an important thing to understand.
Can you explain, just for folks that may not be familiar, if another provider of water and sewer would develop that land, who shoulders the burden of what that development entails to the community?
It would have to get worked out. If it's annexed into a city, it would be that city that would control the zoning.
Well, let me narrow this question.
Yeah.
What schools do the people that go, what schools take on the children of the community that gets developed without any input?
Johnstown Monroe School District.
And how are buildings built for schools?
The school district is required it from property taxes, from development that occurs in the development.
But the operating taxation that the school district, or the taxation the school district gets from businesses goes to operating expenses. The buildings
Yes.
require a levy.
Correct,
So the schools can be packed to the brim,
correct.
or the community will then, understanding that it'll be probably housing developments to pay those bills, will then vote for increased tax revenue for the community the school district lies in without any input from that community whatsoever, other than their ability to vote.
Correct.
Okay. So if we don't control the property, if we don't control the development, someone else is going to be a major input into the other decisions that we're responsible for, either the school district or the municipality.
Well, I think I appreciate those word, Councilman. I think one of the scenarios that we see developing out here, we don't have to look beyond our region to see it play out, right? We think about southern Delaware County and what's occurred there over the past 20 years, and most especially the past 10 years, with unincorporated, extensive residential growth within townships, right? So what's facilitated that? Well, it's been having a utility like the one we're talking about. So as we think more and more about this particular sub-area of our larger planning area, it becomes pretty crucial in this idea of controlling our destiny, right? It becomes pretty crucial in our storytelling around capturing the energy that's out there in the system. But also, we think about our partners with the school district managing, the growth that is, let's be honest, fairly inevitable. But it doesn't have to be at a scale and uncontrolled, and it doesn't have to occur in a way that is counter to who we are as a community.
And without the partners that we want at the table,
Right. Any other thoughts on this? We have one more slide, I think, in here.
We can come.
Yeah, sure. Well, all this sets up really just some words: swiftly, decisive, seize the opportunity. This gets into the bumper sticker version of what we're up to, but really, we're trying to think about within this call to action, what are some steps we can be taking, not in 6 months, but quite literally right now. As we think about the conversations that are ongoing, the partners that are trying to emerge as partners, I won't call them threats, but the surrounding noise that's out there. Some of the initial tools that come to mind, and some that we previewed with you all when we spoke previously, this idea of within your extraterritorial zone, remember that's just what we're talking about right now, what can we use from a regulatory perspective to really evaluate these projects that may come in at scale? To enter into a negotiation and discussion with them to say this fits, this doesn't, this can work, this can't, we can serve, we cannot serve. Well, in the state of Ohio, that really starts to point to one thing, I think, Chris, within this, is that's the idea of the planned development tool, planned unit development tool. This is really a way for us when we think about that decision tree going from an initial conversation to a yes. It's not one conversation, but it's actually quite a few. It's a series. We think about also within these first steps, developing out scenarios for our current utility situation, right? That's not saying making a choice. That's saying beginning to think about what the sequence for that choice would look like. Having a pretty clear understanding about where you are today in terms of your capacity, where you might be able to be with short-term, small inputs, and then where you could be in the future with larger projects. And at the same time, this is more policy, pursuing and leveraging some of these regional partnerships that are out there in an early form and emerging every day. Chris, anything on this?
Yeah, so let me put it this way. You all are the decision makers. We're just providing you the information. If it were up to us, I think the message that we'd like to convey to all of you as the decision makers and to all the residents is that we would encourage you to work with landowners to annex that window to Green Chapel closed and into Johnstown in some form. It could be a linear little band, it could be a larger piece, but having that incorporated into Johnstown will allow Johnstown to control much of the density, not just in that ground, but around it because of the service issues. But I want to explain that council understands this, but for the community, it's really important to understand. A lot of people talk about cities annexing ground, but the way it really works in Ohio is the landowner has to request annexation. So when we say we'd love to see that ground annexed into Johnstown, what we're really saying is we as a community need to be encouraging, finding some partner landowners in that area and getting them interested in requesting annexation of Johnstown. And if they do that, then it will be up to Johnstown to say, what will we be willing to provide in exchange for that annexation and decide whether you want to annex it or not.
And then, Chris, the principal tool for this next step, and let's be honest, this would all occur concurrently, right? But the principal tool for this next step is complicated negotiation that would go on, right? Where we're talking about large jobs infusion, master planned site, one that needs to be aesthetically additive to Johnstown, right? It's not a dropped project. This plan development tool, we keep coming back to this within the region as a best-in-class tool for you all. And given the fact that there is current language within your code, this is something that can be acted on fairly quickly, but the idea of amending and augmenting that tool to meet this moment, really, and what we'd expect to see coming in. This is idea of negotiation. Remember, and the default answer here is not yes, right? I think with the plan development. The default answer here is prove what you're doing meets our standards. Prove what you're doing meets our needs and sets clear expectation, not just for day one of shovel, but throughout the life of that project as it's implemented. And with the idea, final thing I'll say here, Chris, having that initial test be scale. Are you large enough to join us? Can you be served by what we have? Do you have a plan? And can you demonstrate a net fiscal benefit to Johnstown long-term, benefit to schools long-term? This is a much more sophisticated way of beginning that conversation. Chris?
So, we've talked to all of you about this a little bit. I think Johnstown's zoning code, which are the legal requirements for development in Johnstown, needs to get updated. But that is a very big lift, and it is probably most places it would be about a 2-year process. because you have a lot of dialogue about each piece. You need to work with the planning commission, you need to work with council, and you need to work with the community, explain all the changes, and it'd be a pretty heavy wholesale update to the Johnstown zoning code. And I think we're gonna end up recommending that as part of this comprehensive plan. But you don't have 2 years right now for the stuff you need to do. For that reason, we're recommending, as part of this, tonight to you, that we work on creating a planned development district. You already have one, but again, it's probably not what it needs to be. Planned district language that would just replace that section of the Johnstown Code and would be greatly enhanced. And with that zoning district, then we would suggest and recommend to council that should property owners request to be annexed into Johnstown, that you are interested in annexing, that the discussion in the annexation agreement is, we will consider this, all the other things you put on that condition, but also we expect you to rezone to a planned development district under that new language that we would help put into your code. So that is all the high level stuff. I think it's important to understand what a planned district is and the reason we like it. Planned district is a zoning district that basically is a negotiated zoning. It's a multi-step. So I'll back up and say, if it was a planned district, if you wanted to do a commercial development, or let's do a residential development, as long as you met the zoning code and the density requirements, it would go through review of the city, you meet the setbacks, you meet the density, you're providing the road connections, you're doing all the basic connections. If it meets all those things, then it gets approved. And there's not really much discussion in a way of design or those kinds of things. With a planned development, everything's on the table. And so developer comes and says, these are the things I want to do, this is how I want to do it, this is what it needs to look like, this is the density, this is the different kinds of uses, this is how we'll lay it out. There's a cost to it, there's time involved to it, it's a higher bar to meet, but in this case, because of the land we're talking about and the value of what we're talking about, we think that's appropriate. And it would come to count, well, first, any kind of application is basically a 3-step process in Ohio. So somebody that says, I want to do a planned development district, would come in and talk to staff and say, this is what I'm thinking, get some guidance, talk to council and say, and planning commission say, here's a concept, high level concept, what we're trying to do. Yes, no, what do you like, what do you don't like? Not binding in any way, but they get guidance. And when they're really ready to get serious, they come back with a preliminary development plan, which would go to staff, go to planning commission for recommendations, and then council for you all to say yes or no. And all those steps, you can say, close, you gotta do these things different, come back, fix it. You can say, no, it's not working at all. You can say, yes, but with this set of conditions is the only way we're gonna do it. At the end of that process, and that's why there's this kind of circular thing here, most plan development documents are beefy. They have the layout, they have architectural requirements, you've got a sense of what things are gonna look like, a sense of where things are gonna go, road improvements, water and sewer, trees, landscape, sidewalks, parks, detention, stormwater, all that stuff gets laid out at a pretty detailed level, and part of the negotiation is how detailed we all need to feel, you all need to feel to say yes. And then once that's approved, that zoning becomes in effect, and that document becomes the guidance that legally they're required to follow. And then they will come through in phases with what's called a final development plan that would again go to staff. Are you doing what you said you would do in that document, and we talked about at the rezoning stage? And then they come back and go to planning commission. The planning commission says, did you follow what we said you were going to do for that piece? And then it goes ultimately to you all, and you can say, yeah, you're matching it, or no, you're not. So there's kind of these multiple step things. It's usually for a large area that gets built in phases. We actually think, again, for Johnstown, that any development that happens in this area, you want it to be master planned, so it's not one-off lots that don't respond to each other, that there's a bigger context. So we would probably recommend some kind of base floor on how many acres you could do this on, and we really expect a lot of detail and thought on the design and the way it all works together.
So in terms of this evening, Sean, I think what we wanted to provide is one, an underlying piece on this tool, because we just think it's so critical for what and where you are at this particular moment. An update on, you know, where these principles stand and how they're applied. But I think more importantly, acknowledgement that, you know, we see a kind of some early steps here that you all can take to begin to make some sense out of this moment. So with that, it was a little long, but we wanted to make sure we gave you a broad update there.
And so we were putting together a not long report that encapsulates all of this that we want to provide to you, that you could consider adopting. We'd make changes to the map and any of this kind of stuff that you want to talk about. Obviously, you have to feel comfortable with it, but something you could actually adopt so you have something to point to. And then the other thing we'd say is, with your guidance, we would probably start working on developing a plan development text that we could share with you, with staff, with the planning commission, so we can start that process as well. Those are kind of the two big next step things.
So take questions, I think, at this point, Sean, is that perfect?
Yeah, if I could jump in.
Yeah, sure.
I got 3 items. Just to let you all know, I wanted to have MKSK in tonight, just to kind of give you an update. But part of this is because we need to keep pace with moving forward. The other items, we need to capture a lot of the opportunity that's moving very quickly. And they touched on that. Normally in a comprehensive plan, the clock's not ticking quite so fast. With us, there is a window that is closing, I think, for some of the opportunity that exists in that area. So outside of that, normally we wouldn't push this along so heavily, but with that, I think we do need to press our foot on the accelerator for some of those. And then also collectively, as we had some discussion, what's holding us back from bringing some of these items online so that we can move forward. So that's where we've been talking about some deficiencies in the code, what would get us where we need to be able to capture some of that opportunity. So kind of caught you off guard tonight. This was a last minute kind of session that we brainstormed together to bring before council. So we didn't have a lot of lead time to let you know kind of what was going on, but a lot of things are moving pretty quickly. So you'll notice I don't have a manager's report tonight, and part of the reason I wanted to allow them to take my time, but a lot of what I've been doing is meeting with them. And so just to simplify the manager's report, there you go. So for the last month. So that's where I'll stop, and then I'll allow for questions if you all want to allow for the council to have questions.
Absolutely.
I will say it till my last dying breath. There's something unique about this area, and that is we are so lucky to have the school district we have. We have a very, very special school district. It's only going to get better in the next few years. Johnstown is maybe 3 square miles. Our school district's 54 square miles. We have to protect that school district. Southwest Licking Water does not give a crap about our school district. All these other places don't care about that school district like we do. And I'm one member of council, but I will take whatever tools you have to help us be able to protect that school district by setting us up for the future the right way.
Right. I think so much of the discussions that we've had, talking with Dr. Wagner, others, right, it has been about, frankly, use the trucker analogy, using the Jake brake a little bit on what's going on, right? And I think as we think about the reason we've looked out first and not in first is because the way we can control the in, the effects of the in, is to look out. We talk about this Green Chapel Gap. That's not the only strategic area that's out there. We didn't have time for a 4-hour presentation tonight, although we're getting close. But that's one where we just see so much strategic value in controlling destiny. So I think, Mary, what you point out there, a way of protecting, a way of mitigating impacts, and also, quite frankly, there will be growth. Let's be honest.
Oh, yes.
You all are well aware of that, right? But we want that growth to occur in a way that benefits the partners out here.
Exactly.
And is not imposed upon you. So,
I like what you said, that Johnstown can and will control its own destiny.
okay.
And I think that's important, that we control our destiny. We don't allow other people to control it for us.
Sure.
Does anyone else have questions for me?
I have a comment more, so it's more for the community to understand, and this goes along with what the mayor was saying. there's a lot. There's a lot here, and I think it was presented appropriately concise to get a lot of information out in a short amount of time. If you're so inclined to get into the details, to understand the nuts and bolts of how it works, I encourage you to do so and bring your feedback to the council. Come here before us and let us know, what we're not seeing that you are. I think that would be the minority. For the majority of the community, it's going to be critical that you are fundamentally aligned with the people that sit up here on what your vision is for the future. And how do you do that? You get educated, pay attention to the actions and non-actions of the folks that sit up here, and you vote as your voice. Your taxation, the community's taxation, should be an investment in the future. It's critical that we understand the impacts of modifications to taxation, reduction of taxation, and how spending $2 today could cost us $4 tomorrow, or saving $1 today could cost us $2 tomorrow. I just want the community, because with the exception of one, every seat up here is getting renewed in November. And I think it's critical for the future of Johnstown that the people that you put at this table that are going to be making these decisions, that are fiduciarily responsible and motivated to make sure the best decisions come out, align fundamentally. Now, if you like green and we like red, that's the process. We can work all that out. I'm talking about fundamentally what you want your town to be. Put a little effort in to understand the bigger picture, understand where people stand, and vote accordingly. Because if we disagree fundamentally, I don't want to sit here. If we agree fundamentally, I'm happy to put in the work for the community. I just think it's critical to understand if you're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of everything, which you shouldn't have to, that's why we have a representative government, that you put a little bit of effort into understanding who sits in these seats and are charged to make the decisions on your behalf.
I was just curious. I've been told, I'm telling this for the council members, and I'd like to have all the county commissioners come and say this, we do not want Southwest Licking. I've been told we need to call them, text them, tell them how we feel about having Southwest. We don't want them. So do you think that would work?
Well, I want to be clear about that map. But, as we flash that, I don't mean that to scare or threaten anyone here. What I want you all to get across in seeing that map, and I mean to royal you here, is that there are other people that are looking at these same pieces of land that we are, right? And what's important is they may not have the same vision that we do, the same interests that we do for that property. But to be perfectly clear, those are paper pipes right now, right? Those aren't real yet. They would require significant investment to serve at that scale in the order of hundreds of millions of dollars.
So I think it's a good point. I think it's a two-part thing, though. My reaction is Licking County Commissioners did that in a vacuum because they wanted county control in the largest form of county, not Columbus or others. They wanted county control of what happens here. I think it's in part because they don't understand Johnstown's capacity to serve. So I would be tempted to have a meeting with the county commissioners, and it's a two-part. One, we're working on getting the capacity to serve, and we want to control this, to control our destiny and the school district and our community. And so for that reason, we don't think you need to have the Southwest Licking Water and Sewer District come this far up, because we think this is most appropriately to be under Johnstown and the Johnstown Monroe School District kind of control of this area. That would probably be the conversation.
Just so Chris, just so you know, Sharon, those conversations are being had. Crystal clear that Johnstown can service this area specifically. So there should be no doubt in any of their minds that has been a drum that has been banged quite loudly, quite frequently.
Beyond the county level.
It's went to the State House.
Absolutely. So just know that is being
Good.
done on City of Johnstown's behalf, that we're advocating that we are quite capable and we are the best, I believe.
Yeah, I just
we're
thought.
best positioned to service
invite
that
them
area.
all three here and say.
Absolutely.
And
I
Sean,
don't know if they'll come.
I want everyone to remember we're moving very quickly in this process, right? As you would typically move. And it's sort of like a Formula One car slamming the gas, right? I mean, we're accelerating here, and others are as well, right? I think others are trying to catch up to this moment. We're not the only ones in this position. And that's why trying to put our ear to the ground on processes that are going, especially on a regional scale, how those are impacting what we're talking about, transportation process, economic processes, and then of course the utility question, which is paramount.
So I appreciate you guys, just to sum this up, I appreciate you guys coming out, putting this together tonight pretty quickly for us. Obviously, first time with us going through this packet as well, so it was great to get a lot of this information. I know that we have a lot of committees. I'm on zoning. This is something that we've been asking for to move forward quickly. I know a lot of people in the community are wanting to do something quickly, and but it needs to be done the right way. So, and sometimes slow is smooth and smooth is fast. But so yeah, we definitely want to do a lot with this, and getting the education out to the people is great. I know for a lot of the people up here, this might have been a little bit remedial, but as we saw on Facebook this morning with some of the announcements, and as we see every day, we need to get this out to the public, and I think this was great for us, and hope to do more of this in the future.
Well, Councilman Green, I should say that in terms of next steps, we'll obviously laid out the plan district component, but we're ready to conclude our land use framework component of the work, right? So what I wanted to give you before we drop that in an inbox, if you will, is some kind of oven warming here a little bit on where we're at, where we think we're going, just to get the knee jerk on if this is fully out of line or if this is pretty aligned with how you all are feeling. With that being the case, we're ready to really wrap this component, and then with some of those initial tools, I think Sean, move into some of the initial next steps, and then pursue the broader comprehensive planning work, which again, that will be looking inside economics, housing, and other topics as well.
You all said you wanted some projects with zoning, so I
We do.
I delivered, and I couldn't kind of give you all the information at that point because it wasn't fully. All the recipes weren't in there, but this is what we're kind of looking for, and you will be busy. Just know that, and council will be as well. You'll be very much involved with this process when it looks at a PUD. We're going to go to PD at this point, plan development. So yeah, love to have the participation. The beautiful part of this is we have a wonderful, phenomenal planning group that is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us. That's the only way that we can get something like this and of this importance done correctly. There's no way this is something we can handle in-house. So this is why I've really engaged and pressed on them reluctantly. They've agreed. I may have had to twist some arms once or twice, but we have a wonderful group here that's helping us, and as well as our legal staff. Frost Brown and Todd has extensive experience in the Central Ohio area with some pretty positive and renowned developments in communities that have been pretty successful. So fortunately, they've got a member on their team that we're going to plug into this as well. So what you should see is a product that hopefully after they're done and legal, you can review and you're not tasked with doing all the hammering of the nails and digging in the trenches and things like that. You should have a pretty well framed product available, and then you get to pick out the window dressings that go along and the interior design a little bit, so to speak. So, and that's really the only way we're going to get this thing moving forward quickly. So
Thank you.
but you'll have tons of it.
Will you guys stay around for about 10 minutes in case any residents have comments during their sections? So, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Trevor.
Next on the agenda tonight is a mayor proclamation. March is Development Disabilities Month, and the proclamation reads, whereas the Licking County Board of Developmental Disabilities has been a part of our community for more than 55 years, providing essential services and supports to people with disabilities of all ages and their families. And whereas through their work, LCBDD has worked to connect the people they support with the greater community, create opportunities for people with disabilities to share their experiences and advocate for inclusion. And whereas every year during the month of March, the Licking County Board of Developmental Disabilities shares the stories of our friends, neighbors, classmates, and colleagues who also happen to have developmental disabilities. As our county continues to grow and evolve, this awareness will continue to be essential when our county is a more accepting, accessible place, is a better community for all of us. Therefore, I, Donald Barnard, Mayor of the City of Johnstown, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month. Johnstown City Council presents this proclamation to the Licking County Board of Developmental Disabilities on behalf of more than 2,100 people they support, We are thankful for all they do to make Licking County welcoming to all. Thank you. We have citizens' comments on matters not on the agenda. I ask that you, if you have any comments, that you come up to the microphone. If you can give me your name, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Do we have anybody tonight? Okay. Moving on to council committee reports. Planning and zoning met on the February 28th meeting was canceled. Their next meeting is March 14th, next Tuesday at 6:30 here in council chambers. Design Review Board meets on March 14th also at 5 p.m. here in council chambers. Safety and Service, their next meeting is March 21st at 5 p.m. in the administrative office. Finance, we met tonight. Our next meeting is April 18th at 5 p.m. in the administration office. We have one thing that we would like to bring forth. The Finance Committee voted, and we recommended that we begin the search for a Finance Director position, that this search will begin on April 1st. The position will, the salary range we will request is between $80,000 and $110,000, depending on experience, and that we begin the search on April 1st. So I make a motion that we begin the search beginning that date.
Second.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
John Merriman,
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Aaron Hendren.
Yes.
We discussed a couple other things that we don't have anything to come really forward to the rest of the committee tonight, but we'll be discussing more. There'll be a couple appropriations coming in the very near future. The Events Committee met March 1st. The next meeting is March 23rd at 2023, or March 23rd at 5:30 p.m. Does anyone here want to speak about the Events Committee meeting?
I was not at the meeting.
Okay. Park and Rec met on February 27th. The next meeting's to be decided. You guys have anything on that, Sharon?
Yes, the Miles Estate did not go well for the school, unfortunately. Not that they are going to quit. And I do think the city council, we should all try to get this straightened out. I don't have any answers for it right now. I've been talking to Ruth Enboer and Terry Fetters, but it's not looking good for the school, which is sad because they have worked very hard for it. So that's all I have to say about it. The next meeting, when did we say it was? Teresa, March?
I don't think.
I thought we set one towards the end of March. Anyway, we'll set one. I thought we
Get those two
did.
guys on the schedule too.
What?
You need to get those two guys on the schedule too.
Yeah.
Okay. Economic Development, their next meeting is to be decided, and the rules, we need to get together and figure out when we're going to meet on that one.
Sure. I'd like to make a comment if I may, Mayor, on the rules.
Yes, sir.
Rules Committee has been taking a backseat to some of the other committees that are much more timeline-driven. The things we have to do in rules are mostly administrative adjustments to some of the language. Council has adopted and has really begun to follow the rules as they exist. So I would recommend that rules can be organized as needed or as available, yielding its time to zoning, finance, other committee meetings that are critical for our current situation.
Thank you. Tonight on director reports, we have Water, Sewer, Street, and our service director. For water, if we could have Mr. Nichols come give his report, please.
Good evening. For the month of February, the water flow was 17.786 million gallons. We had 26 shut-offs, and then we had people working on work orders. Tim Perry hauled lime sludge back on Monday, February 6th. The water plant staff completed 2.0 hours of training. We changed line feeder number 1, put number 2 line feeder in, and cleaned out the line feeder number 1. On Tuesday, February 21st, Owens Engineering did a walkthrough of the water plant, for the water plant expansion project. National Well Service is right now in the process of drilling number 4 low service well. And Tim Perry worked 9 hours for the street department. And the water plant daily tap results, that you can see our alkalinity was 1 part higher than the highest average, and the total hardness was 1 instead of our max was 150, and we averaged out 151. And that's it.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Nichols? Thank you, sir.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
The talk. My understanding is Jersey Township has a contract with Southwest looking for water and sewer. I live in Jersey Township, and I was told that they have gotten a contract with Southwest Licking. So how is that going to affect Johnstown moving into Jersey Township?
That is something that we're still working on. We're working on that project, talking to some trustees in Jersey to figure out where exactly they are on that, so.
Okay, well, I just want to bring that up because I go to their meetings, and I was told that Jersey Township already has a contract in place with them, and I'm dedicated to get
Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Yes, sir.
Just at a broader perspective of that, districts assigned, water service areas assigned are a general planning for the future. In the property that we were talking about tonight, the Green Chapel Gap, it's about access and implementation of putting pipes in the ground. We sit in the driver's seat of the opportunity. It will be an active decision to not do it or to do it that determines the future. No one else is going to press us at this point as far as beating us to service that area. The larger area at large, yes, Jersey or Southwest Listing has a long way to go. And when it comes to running water pipe, you have to have someone to run it to. It would take a incredible investment to run water pipes out into the field for the future because of the expense associated with it. So typically, you see development follow the pipe along the, so to get to us, there's a significant amount of development, and the avenue that they're coming is also not easy land to service. So,
And I understand that, but I didn't know if they had a contract with Jersey Township, how that would affect progress.
I don't
Mr.
Have
Mayor,
a
Yes,
contract.
go ahead.
if you want, and I'm not trying to do any type of land claiming or grabbing or anything like that, but it's more from a factual basis. So if a city annexes it in, then it becomes inside the city, and then it no longer is obligated to any of the contracts that are beholden to the township or Southwest Licking. So, and I'm not saying that that's what we want to do, but I'm just giving that as an informational standpoint that if it were annexed in, then all the agreements that were made prior to the township and any other water providers, it would no longer be beholden to
Yeah,
that particular landowners.
agreement's null and void when I don't want to say ownership, because that's the wrong term, the control of the land changes. So anything that would be annexed into any municipality then falls under that municipality's agreements. And any ones made outside of that fall away. In general, there are specific circumstances, but we don't have those.
That probably doesn't answer your question, Terry, but maybe.
Oh, no, I just want to bring that up.
They can have whatever agreement they want in place, but if that land is annexed into Johnstown, that's gone. It'll be,
Mr. Mayor.
yes, sir, back here.
Maybe I can help real quick. I think that Jersey does have an agreement. I think right now the extent is to get water and sewer up to 161 and serve the 161 corridor. I'm not sure that I think the Jersey Township's having conversations about how much further, but for now, I think it's really talking about the 161 corridor, which obviously is not really in our.
Yeah. Thank you. Next, we have our sewer department, and that is Mr. Fitch.
Hi, Council.
Thank you, sir.
For the month of February, we treated a total of 16.2 million gallons of wastewater. Our plant efficiency charts there, we're getting great removals. The plant is running very well. Our sewer bugs are very happy. So this warm weather, it's really helped. Moving on to work highlights. We had 2 new build sewer inspections, then 1 existing sanitary service repair. We pressed pretty close to 1 million gallons of sludge this month. And then we ended up hauling out 33 dry tons. So whenever we press, the gallonage all breaks down into dry tons with a conversion factor there. And I posted a couple pictures down below. We had to replace some old worn out liners in our grit classifier. These are 1/2-inch sacrificial liners that eventually, they saved the life of the shaftless screw and the housing itself. It prevents that steel to steel contact there. Our bulk sewer and water, we brought in a little over 1.3 million gallons of septic waste. So that's, that might be pretty close to a record.
Wow.
Bulk water, a little over 60,000. Again, it slows down this time of year. So, any questions?
This may be a ridiculous question, but
Yeah.
does the cold weather kill your bugs?
It slows them way down, and yeah, it does kill a lot of them off. Yeah.
And they just reproduce?
The
them?
strongest survive, really. No, they will reproduce. Yeah.
So if anybody doesn't know, they don't use chemicals necessarily to treat the sewer. It is actually microorganisms that treats our sewer and gets it ready to be discharged back into the creek, so.
Yes, it's all biological for now.
For
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not so much in the future. So, from what we're hearing.
Thank you, sir. And finally, we have our street department, Mr. Swick.
Do a quick overview for February. Just starting at the top there, miscellaneous. Did 3 LED lights switched out. Street lights, sorry. On down to street maintenance, we did 2 tons of cold patch and on various streets. Water maintenance, we had 1 water line repair, service line repair. We also replaced a fire hydrant. On down to storm water maintenance, we did a catch basin repair in Khyber Run, 307 to be exact. On down to park maintenance, we did fence line clearing in the cemetery and added stone in front of the dog park, the entrance to the dog park. That's all I got. I got pictures of the catch basin on the back and then as well as the water line repair we did.
I have heard so many comments about the gravel at the dog park. You have made so many people happy, so thank you. They're thrilled about it. I think you brought that up too, Ms. Hendren, a couple weeks ago. But it's great for it, so. Well, thank you, sir. And Mr. Liggett, if you could give us a service department report.
Yes, just to give you a quick update on the projects. Number 1, the water tower update. As you all knew from the last report, we have created a punch list. A number of those items, due to weather and such, are not completed at this time, but the tower controls were installed. The new tower is in operation and is operating well. Water plant update, design continues to move forward. We should be receiving the first guaranteed maximum price from Bowen on March 20th to go through my review. We will then meet again with engineers in Bowen, and then that number will be coming to council in April if everything follows as planned. Also, Terry mentioned, but just to give you a brief update, at the time of this, which was March 3rd, the well drillers were at 150 feet. They have completed their drilling. They're down to approximately 380 feet at this time. So the next step to this project is to actually do the pump test to see the quantity of water that is there. I don't have that scheduled at this time, but it should probably be happening next week. I'll give you a report on that. Wastewater plant upgrade, we've all been waiting very on pins and needles, waiting for this report so we can get started with our wastewater design. That report is due the end of this week. I was told it would come the second half of this week. We're hoping that that follows through and we get that report to begin to review. Rolling Meadows project is complete. I don't believe the final payments are out yet, but all the sanitary lining, line repairs, and manhole coverage that was scheduled to be done is done. Also, because we didn't have quite as many repairs on that line that we thought, we were able to line it instead of dig it up and do the repair. There was enough extra money in that project that we were able to line the East Jersey section. That now that road is completely from the sewer line to the water mains to the water services, and the storm sewer is going in as we speak, is going to be completely rebuilt from the bottom up. So that was nice that we were able to have that little bit of extra money from that. I'll have Public Works know that was the ARPA fund to complete and do that on Jersey Street. Jumping into Jersey Street, all water mains are lowered, all new services were put in, and everybody is hooked up on Jersey Street to the new water main, and they are currently installing the new storm sewers. I have an update meeting Thursday at 10 o'clock with Law Construction Engineers to capitalize where we're at on that project, where we're at on our spending, to make sure we're on track and get a renewed schedule of completion for that project. Pulte Home Development, I'd already mentioned we have a punch list. They'll let us know when that punch list has been completed so we can go in and make sure all the work is done and done correctly. And item 7, we are still waiting to see if we got the $10,000 grant for some leak detection equipment through the Public Works Systems Equipment Grant. So we're still waiting on that. Any questions on any of the above items?
I have one. On the well, is that well that they drilled, and I just want to make sure this is right, that is hopefully going to supply the extra 2 million gallons of water a day that we need for the new water plant? No?
No.
Okay.
We actually already have enough wells to deliver the 3 million gallons to the new plant. The EPA requires, and rightfully so, that we can deliver that water to the plant so the plant can stay operational with our largest well out of service. So we had enough wells to handle the 3 million gallons, but we did not have the well in reserve in case one of the other wells went down. So this well allows us to get approval from the EPA because we can deliver the 3 million gallons to the plant with our largest well out of service. This is the backup well to that.
So how much water does the largest well right now provide that we need to make sure that this one provides?
We were asking for a re-rating, which we are going to get as soon as we finish up some paperwork, of 950 gallons a minute, is our largest well right now. We hope that this will turn into our largest well. But we do meet the 3 million gallons a day that we have to run to the new facility.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Lee? Thank you very much, sir. Moving on to table legislation, the ordinance adopting wage and salary structures. It is on our finance agenda. Our finance meetings seem to take forever and we don't get to it. It has now risen to item number 3 for the next meeting, so hopefully we'll hit it in the next meeting. Public hearings on legislation, resolution 2023-05, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter an agreement with Schlaball Builders. And I will turn this over to Mr. Stainert to explain this a little bit.
Yeah, briefly, I talked a little bit about it last council meeting, so I won't bore you with too much detail, but the overall gist of it was with the tree ordinance that we had in place. The timing of when that was passed by council versus the timing of when this particular development filed its applications and came online and the phasing of it. So we felt it advantageous to maybe see if we could come to an agreement on all parties, so that way we weren't wasting time. I won't say wasting time, but spending a lot of monies on attorneys and legal counsel to try to navigate an outcome which we thought we could hopefully negotiate and just talk through, which I believe with this agreement in place, it achieves a lot of what the city was looking for, if not more. And it allows them to keep in step with the timing that is appropriate for their development. So a win for us, as well as probably a win for the developer. I think overall it's going to add a value to that development. Currently, in the old phases, there are no street trees. This is going to allow for street trees to be identified. On top of what is the requirement, they're going to do an additional 200, and then 10,000 is going to be added to the tree fund as well. So, like I said, I feel like as far as a compromise goes, this was a pretty good relationship that we were able to work through. Going to be a lot of canopy in that area once that trees start to kind of grow up. So, if you have any questions, I did want to point out. In your packet, you'll see there's 1, 2, and 3. There's been an additional item per a request that I had, number 4, and this literally just came in. Species of trees planted must be reviewed by the city for approval unless these species are from the pre-approved list attached in Exhibit A. So then you're asking, what are the exhibits? I can run through them if you so desire. If not, that's fine.
I think it was a tree ordinance that was passed, so.
Yeah, there's probably, I would say, another 20 trees that are on here. 8 oak trees, probably another 12 maple trees. So the idea was to obviously not have any of the trees that are on the prohibited list, but also have some guidance for some of the trees that we found acceptable to be in that list. So, like I said, overall, I never like to go outside of the boundaries, but with this one, and I want to make this explicitly clear, that way it's not reused by any other future development that comes through and says, hey, we want to have the same rules. We're not even sure that we could have beholden this particular developer to the rules because of the timing of the ordinance. So like I said, rather than go through the legal process of fighting back and forth, this was an outside of the box way of resolving the issue. Our legal counsel, we obviously got in contact with them, and this is what was their recommendation to have a resolution, and Teresa drafted it up.
Okay, is there any comment on it from the council? Any comment from the public? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
I'll second.
Did you open up for public hearing?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I totally missed it. Working on the side. All right, John Merriman,
Yes.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Ryan Green.
Yes.
Sharon Hendrick.
Yes.
Paul Barsini.
Yes.
Thank you, Sean, for taking care of that and saving us money from lawyers.
Well, lawyers are a necessary evil at times, but no need to pay for their kids' college, so.
The next is Resolution 2023-06. This is a resolution appointing members to the Johnstown Tree Commission. We had 2 individuals leave the Tree Commission, and 1 member that's still on it that his term expired. We are recommending Charlie Campbell is reappointed to the Johnstown Tree Commission with a new term expiring December 31st, 2025. Ashley Kuzner is appointed to the unexpired term ending December 31st, 2024. And Ms. Tiffany Hollis is appointed to the unexpired term ending December 31st, 2023. Is there any comment from the council on this one?
My only comment on this one, I don't have a problem with the pics at all, but as far as advertising, I'm not sure that we advertise this. I'm not sure what the selection process entailed.
I will answer that. In the 3 years of the tree council, we've only had 1 person ever show up to a tree council meeting other than the tree council. It's not our most popular committee that people want to work on, so the 5 members that were originally on it were picked up by they were picked by the city for people who were interested in trees, and that's what we did again. So I think as this city continues to grow, we'll probably advertise this in the future. So, any comment from the citizens? Okay, do I have a motion?
Move as written.
I'll second.
Mayor Barnard,
Yes.
Ryan Green,
Yes.
Sharon Hendren,
Yes.
Bob Orsini,
Yes.
John Merriman.
Yes.
Awesome. So that's public hearings of legislation. There's no introduction of new legislation. Other business, we have a couple items tonight. The first one is we need to appoint someone to the Licking County Health Board. Is that correct, Sean?
I'm gonna find you the correct terminology, I apologize. But in essence, yes, and I'll allow you to continue your conversation while I pull up.
This is a countywide department that we have to send a representative to since we are a city. It can be anybody within the city. It can be the mayor, the city manager, or city council member. I didn't know if we had someone in city council who wanted to be appointed to this position.
How often do they meet?
They don't meet very often, do they, Sean?
Not that I'm aware of. They did have their first meeting, this week. So I think maybe twice a year. But as a city, we now have an appointee that goes to the board. It just has to be done by the mayor and council. So I would say not very often, and I don't know the impact, but it's one of those things, it's never important until you need it. So.
Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Yes, sir.
Do we have someone in the community that potentially has something to offer? I'm not speaking for everyone. I have nothing to offer a health board.
Neither do I.
I mean,
Does it have to be
not
someone-
that I think it's not important. I just have no official or training of any sort.
The email that I received was simply the contract states the mayor makes the appointment with the consent of the city council. So,
Do we have
Pretty
medical
broad.
staff that wants to do
Do we
it?
have a doctor, someone in town that may
Can we-
have a?
Yeah.
Can we get back with them, reach out and see if we can find someone who might be interested in this?
yeah, absolutely. You don't have to decide tonight.
Do it.
Just wanted to introduce you.
Yes, sir.
Connie, I think that there are some, we do have a couple of clinics in town that, there might be, I might know some people that might be interested, so I think it's a good idea, maybe we could reach out to some
Absolutely.
people that appreciate that appointment, so.
We can do that.
And just so you know, maybe a little bit of background on what it'll involve. It's gonna involve, health department does your sewer inspections, your plumbing inspections and things like that. So, I mean, it also affects obviously your physical health, but from an infrastructure health, as far as your house goes, those are some decisions. And then also, any inspections that we do from a food service or any restaurant type of things like that. So those will probably be more conversations that are frequented in those meetings rather than necessarily,
Might not be a doctor.
Yes.
it may not.
Doctor, plumber,
It may.
restaurant owner,
Well,
it sounds like.
Maybe I can call them and find out what exactly would
Well,
be best qualified.
Yeah, what I will say is the city pays a fee every year for the county health department to kind of cover those inspections and things like that take place. So whenever you do a plumbing inspection, and Councilman Merriman, feel free to jump in at any time, because this is your wheelhouse.
Well, he was saying that Councilman Shook might be someone, since she works in the food industry, that this
She's
might be.
probably serve safe, so she can at least handle that
No,
portion.
that's a great point. So they have to deal with this on probably a monthly basis as far as, inspections go and things like that. So she may have some background knowledge that would be helpful and allow us to hit the ground running.
Okay, we'll look into that then. Other business also, Chamber of Commerce office space. Mr. Merriman, Mr. Stainer.
I had thought about that too. I was gonna bring that up.
He's just here,
Put me
over
on the
there.
spot. All right,
He's
so.
sitting over there. You should make him stand up here while you talk to him.
All right, I'll play. So the idea was to have the Chamber of Commerce utilize this neighboring room or door that's next to the city. It's currently being used by our police department as kind of their gathering room. We want to obviously not take away something without giving something. There is a room in the back that we've discussed with the city police department, the chief, that we could utilize, knowing that there's probably a larger discussion on the best use and re-evaluating how this entire building is utilized. But in the interim, we need to move forward with that. Some of the constraints we've currently had are staffing, and then we've scaled the project down significantly from its original scope to where it's hard to get a contractor excited about a small little project. As you know, the market for contractors is somewhat difficult, and we're looking at really just doing some drywall, a little bit of electrical, and nothing too broad and expansive. So it's really taken us out of the category for that contractor to come in at this point. So we could have a volunteer day. If you so choose, I can continue to try to call around. I'll be honest. I followed up with the one contractor that had looked at it originally. He came in, was super nice, and then like I said, I scaled it back. I don't know that he has much interest. I can reach back out to him to see if he does. And then also there is the cost component with the budget we went through last year. I don't know that we really projected anything for this rehabilitation of a room, so.
I think we put like 10 grand.
Yeah, it should be in
Yeah,
there.
it was 10
10
grand.
should be
Yeah,
in
we
there.
had this worked out.
So,
Right, something like that?
Yep.
This close?
That's the estimate I had.
Somewhere about 9 or 10.
I might have a lead for you too for the contract.
okay. Yeah, I'm willing to listen to all interested parties so that we can make it happen. Like I said, it's not just this room, it's the back room.
Yep.
That we have to get up to speed. And it's an interesting area back there. We did get the chairs out of the area, so that was a big hurdle. We couldn't obviously vacate this area until that area is finished. Teresa, we finally sold the chairs, last 3 weeks ago? They came and picked them up. So, to be fair, it hasn't been all on us. There is a progression of steps that need to happen. Now that those chairs have been gone, we've sold them. We did move them out of the room into another storage area, so there's just a lot coming at us right now, so I haven't put this on the front burner. If you want, I can start to reach out, or if anybody wants to take the lead. You're
Bob's
welcome.
Bob's got somebody.
I think I might have a lead for it. The Chamber of Commerce is a projection of our city,
Correct.
just like the school district. So, I think it's important that we have the
Good
best we
relationship.
can that we can offer.
Yeah. And I heard they had a large crowd the last time. They're growing. So we need to have a good relationship with the chamber, I
There
think.
was a meeting yesterday. It was a full house yesterday. It was a great meeting.
If they get over there, then maybe they can use here sometimes. They might get too big for Gather sooner than later.
They are already too big. Other business, we had several council members attend the family night, Dr. Seuss reading night at the Johnstown Elementary School last
Right to Read
Thursday.
Week.
What was it?
Right to read. Week.
Right to Read. It was a great turnout. We had a couple council members read. Some picked really short books, others picked real long books, which is difficult with Dr. Seuss. But it was a very good meeting. The relationship between the council and the school is outstanding. And I just want to thank Dr. Wagner for inviting us to that. Does anyone else have anything for other business? Sean?
I don't have anything.
Just a note that we participated in Licking County Framework.
And we did participate in the Licking County Framework meeting. That was a couple weeks ago. We had, I think, 4 council members and the city manager there. It was a great presentation about housing. I didn't realize how little housing starts were in Licking County the last few years and how much they are pushing housing on us. So that was a very interesting meeting. Learned a lot there. So that is all I have. No other business. Could I have a motion to adjourn tonight?
So moved.
Second.
Are all in favor?
Aye. Thank you guys for coming tonight.
You have to show me in the budget where we put it at.
What's that?
That watch?
I will find it. We talked.